Making an episode of a live-action show is a lot like baking a pie. To make a good one requires equal parts hard work, time, and love. If you succeed, you'll create something great to be enjoyed by everyone. But if you are missing even one of the key ingredients,
you will fail, and it will burn,
leaving a lingering scent. My name is PIEGUYRULZ, and I'm here at the bottom of the bakery to smell that pie. Metaphorically speaking, of course. In reality, I'm here to talk to you guys about an episode of a Schneider's Bakery show that was really not good. Hey guys, PIEGUYRULZ here, and I have a question for you. Are you ready for the SETI? Because at long last, it is time. A lot of people have asked me where it is that I think that the Schneider shows started to get bad. Did it start with Sam and Cat? Was Drake and Josh truly the only good show? Or did it happen somewhere in between? And after thinking about it for a long time, it is here, the Seddie Arc. It is the moment at which everything changed in terms of these shows. Sure, there were bad episodes before it and good episodes after, but this arc kind of signaled a new era for iCarly, where things were a lot less about the web show and a lot more about stupid nonsense that could get as many views as possible. If you haven't seen my video on I Start a Fan War, I highly suggest it as I consider it a prologue to this series of videos. But if you didn't see it, the important thing that you need to know is that given that episode, it is pretty clear that the writers and creators of iCarly really didn't want the show to be about shipping. Which of course begs the question why 5 months and about 3 episodes after Fan War, this episode rolls around and sets us off into a multiple episode arc where Freddie and Sam start dating. And it's not like the characters date in the background and other storylines go on. No, the entire show gets derailed for like 5 episodes just to have these two characters date. The way I see it, one of two things happened here. Either the writers saw how much the fans really wanted Sam and Freddie to get together and decided to give in to them just because they really wanted to make the fans happy, or 2, they realized they could make boatloads of cash by teasing the heck out of this pairing and making it official. Because as previously stated, a large portion of the fan base on iCarly really loved the shipping. I'll let you decide which one you think is a more likely situation, but given how poorly this whole arc is written, it's pretty clear from the get-go that this was not what the people writing this show actually wanted to do. But I'm getting way ahead of myself here. Some of you may not even know what I'm talking about. So let's dive into our first episode in the SETI arc, iOMG. At this point in the video, usually I'd say the episode I'm reviewing is like some sort of baked good or pastry. But since for the first time ever the Bizarro Bakery came out before the Bottom of the Bakery counterparts, I guess we're just gonna reuse that. So this story arc is like a wedding cake, because it's a romantic symbol that kind of means nothing. The characters are locked in the school overnight to finish their science projects. Gibby and Carly lock Spencer in a box and torture him with psychological experiments, because apparently that's what they decided to do for their science project. Meanwhile, Freddie and a kid who had a slight cameo in some other episode and will never appear again, work on some sort of mood sensing app with Sam, who's being uncharacteristically kind to them. Okay, first off, I want to talk about this whole school lock-in thing. Was this a thing that anyone's school actually did? I don't know, maybe I'm being ignorant here, but this just seems like the worst idea ever. First of all, the school is encouraging kids to actively stay up all night at the last minute to finish their projects. I mean, look, I'm not saying I've never done that or that it never happens, because yeah, sometimes it does, but the school really shouldn't be encouraging that kind of behavior. Next, even though there is clearly some adult at the school because their voice is heard over the loudspeaker, the only other adult that's actually visible is Spencer, who, as I mentioned before, is locked in a box. So even though there might be adults around, they're still leaving kids pretty much unsupervised in classrooms overnight. And actually, come to think of it, being locked in doesn't even matter. Seriously, the characters could be doing their science experiments in the iCarly studio and it would really make no difference with the plot. I mean, I guess they get some jokes out of it, but otherwise it just seems so superfluous and weird. Maybe some school actually did this and this is like riffing on that current event? At any rate, somehow the SETI part of this is actually not the worst part of the episode. No, that honor belongs to Spencer's quote-unquote subplot. So let's follow Carly's logic on this one. She gets assigned a school project and decides to partner up with Gibby, because Freddie decided to partner up with their new intern kid, and Sam, I guess, wasn't gonna do a project until she decided to just attach herself to Freddie's project. So Carly decides to see how a subject is going to respond to stimuli. Okay, fair enough, but she's gonna need a subject, right? How about her wonderful, always there to help her older brother? Okay, everything's making sense, it all follows logic, cool. But somewhere along the lines, Carly gets access to this, what can only be described as this torture chamber box thing? I have no idea where she got this thing from. Did she ask her iCarly fans to send her an evil torture box? Okay. So Carly asks her brother to help her out while being as vague as possible about the experiment, then locks him in the test chamber, blasts obnoxious music in his ears, deafening him, pipes in horrendous smelling things into what seems like a pretty enclosed area. Actually, I'm not even sure if that box has air holes. And lastly, of course, electrocutes him. What even is this? I can't even call it a storyline. It's just Carly locking her brother in a torture chamber and gassing the crud out of him. You know who else locked people up in chambers and gassed them unsuspectingly? Exactly. Just like GLaDOS. From Portal. Where'd you think I was going with that analogy? And they're not even like really testing anything. They're just forcing him to do these things and then jotting down whatever. The show made such little effort into making this actually make sense and feel organic. Seriously, aside from the fact that it makes Carly look like an absolute monster, this wacky situation is 110% forced. The best kind of shenanigans in these shows at least start off in a somewhat realistic situation. If you look at I Start a Fan War, Spencer's plot in that feels organic because you could totally see two nerds having some sort of weird dweeb off at a convention. Does it get exaggerated and weird? Yes, but it at least starts off in a place that you could be like, yeah, I could see that happening in real life. And then slowly escalates to the insanity. If you just start off having characters do ludicrous things for no reason, I'm not gonna buy it. And it's not funny, because they made no effort into convincing me that Carly really actually needs to be doing any of these quote-unquote experiments. This isn't Spencer being awkward or goofy or stumbling into a situation and making a complete fool of himself. This is his teenage sister deciding to lock him in a box and torture him. Where is the joke? And then in the context of having an actual story, this doesn't even fit anywhere, because it's not like this is karma for Spencer doing something horrible earlier in the episode or something like that. No, he just reluctantly agrees to do this experimentation and then gets tortured. It doesn't even have an ending. We don't even see him escape the box. For all we know, the torture put him in a coma and the rest of the series takes place in his warped little mind. What was even the writing process on this episode? Wouldn't it be funny if Carly locked Spencer in a box and systematically destroyed every one of his senses? Okay, that sounds interesting. How's he gonna end up in that situation and how are we gonna resolve it? We don't need any story structure in this episode. Sam and Freddie are gonna kiss, that's all that matters. Yeah, no, seriously. It's not just that the Spencer part of this gets no resolution whatsoever. Literally nothing else in this episode gets resolved either. They spend a little bit of the beginning building up this Brad character as the new intern for iCarly or something, but really his only purpose in the episode is to serve as a red herring for who Sam actually likes, which is Freddie. He's literally not seen ever again in the rest of the Seddie Arc or iCarly or anywhere else in the Schneider universe. Also, this science project thing, like the whole reason why most of the episode even happens, yeah, no one talks about it again. Not at the end of this episode, not in the next episode, not ever again. So because of this, I'm just going to assume that everyone failed, Brad is dead, and Spencer is in a coma. And get used to this, because from here on out in the arc, the only thing that matters is Sam and Freddie being together. Nothing else matters. I'll be honest, the story here involving Sam liking someone and it turning out to be Freddie is actually not too bad. The episode does a good job of hinting that it's Freddie while still making it seem like it's obvious it's Brad. And I also liked how they tied it into the science fair project, having Sam's mood be in love. I'm not quite sure how scientific an app can be in sensing your mood, but it doesn't actually have to be realistic, just at least slightly plausible, which it is. So yeah, surprisingly, SETI is kind of the best part of this episode. Maybe the SETI arc won't be so bad. Although my favorite bit in the episode is when Carly tells Sam that she just wants her to be happy, and Sam retorts back, "Then bake me a pie." To which Gibby mentions that he loves pie. As we all know, if there's one thing that iCarly did right, it was respecting the sanctity of pie. Anyway, even though this particular story about Sam and Freddie is pretty competent, in the greater context of the Seddie Arc, it does have a pretty big problem. The big storyline is about trying to convince the audience that Freddie and Sam could make for a functioning couple. If you are going to try to do this story, you had better do your best to downplay Sam's physical and verbal abuse. The less I'm reminded of how much of a nasty, horrible bully she is, the less uncomfortable the story is. I'm not a fan of putting Sam and Freddie together as a couple. Generally, I think this is a bad idea for a story, but I do think that there is a way to do this sort of thing that at the very least is not promoting and romanticizing an abusive relationship. And one way to do that is to distance this arc from the rest of iCarly in terms of Sam's bullying. But this episode, the one that starts off the arc, has Freddie thinking that Sam has drugged his food, because this is apparently something that she may have done before, and mentioning how she usually only gives insults followed by beatings. Yes, physical, emotional, and psychological abuse. Thank you, iOMG, for reminding me what a horrible, horrible person Sam Puckett is. I so hope that her relationship with Freddie is successful. She 100% deserves him. And the episode ends, of course, with Sam and Freddie kissing. Because cliffhanger. According to Dan's website, when they shot iOMG, they actually didn't have a plan for where they were going with this arc. They even filmed versions where Carly was there and versions where Carly wasn't there during the kiss, just to keep their options open. I've said this before, but the best kind of arcs are the ones that are planned in advance. You don't have to know every single detail if it's going to happen in the next season, but you should have at least a rough idea of where you're going with this. Especially if your show is not known for story arcs and you've never really done one before. So yeah, that's iOMG. It's a bad episode, but mostly just because of the Spencer stuff. It's not really this episode's fault that the episodes that follow are really, really stupid. But seeing as it does end in that cliffhanger, a cliffhanger is only as good as the resolution. Anyone can create an episode like OMG. Go for that big shock value at the end. But it's what you do with that big shocking moment that actually matters in terms of good storytelling. And I can tell you, as someone who has seen the rest of the arc, that where they go with it is quite honestly insane. It's usually at this point when I'm summing up things that the baked good pops out of the oven and we see what damage has been done. But since this is part of an arc, I guess that cake is kinda stuck in the oven. And we're really not getting a great view here. So I'm gonna do something I've never done before. I'm going to go inside the oven. Whoa.